Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Agudath Israel Etz Ahayem Synagogue here in Montgomery, Alabama. I am Rabbi Scott Kramer. Welcome to our Kabbalat Shabbat service. So excited for this weekend, both to be here with you this evening and, of course, to celebrate with the Leibovitz family tomorrow morning for Richard Leibovitz and Jenna Rossov's Ufrov. Before they're celebrating, they're tying the knot in a month or so, and we look so forward to celebrating with them tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. sharp. With that, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to everyone. We are praying out of Siddur Lev Shalem, and we begin tonight on page 5 with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim Dosh Baruch Hu, Boachem l'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Barchuni l'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem l'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We continue with Lechu Neranina, page 11, Psalm 95. Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina l'Adonai. Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina l'Adonai. Nariya, Nariya, Letzor Yishenu, Nekad Mafana Betoda. Nariya, Nariya, Letzor Yishenu, Bizmirot Nariya Lo. Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina l'Adonai. Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina l'Adonai. Nariya, Nariya, Letzor Yishenu, Nekad Mafana Betoda. Nariya, Nariya, Letzor Yishenu, Bizmirot Nariya Lo. Please join me in the English. Let us go and sing to Adonai. Let us trumpet praise to our protector. Filled with thanks, let us greet God, raising our voice in song. Great is Adonai, a greater sovereign than all other deities. God's hands formed the earth's deep. Mountain crests too are God's work. The sea is God's, for God made it. Dry land was fashioned by God's hands. Come then, let us bow and kneel. Let us bend our knees in the presence of Adonai who formed us. For Adonai is our God, and we are God's flock, sheep in God's caring hands. If only you would listen today to God's voice and not become hard-hearted like the people at Merivah, like that time at Massah, in the desert when your ancestors tried me and tested me, though they had seen what I had wrought. For 40 years I was troubled by that generation, and I said, these are a people whose hearts have gone astray. They do not know my ways, so in anger I swore they would not enter my rest. Arba'im shanakut bedor va'omaram toeh levavem ve'im lo yadid rachai asher nishpati v'yapi im yevon el menuchati, page 13. Shiru ladonai shir chadash, shiru ladonai kol haaretz, shiru ladonai baruch shemo, basru meyom leyom yeshuato, sapru vagoyim kevodo, bechol amim nifliotav, ki gadol Adonai, umehulal miyod, no ra'u, al ko Elohim, lai lai lai, ki ko Elohim amim elilim, v'Adonai shamayim asa, had v'hadar lefanav, oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho, havu l'Adonai mishpachot amim, havu l'Adonai kavod v'oz, havu l'Adonai ke'evod shemo, seu mincha, uvahu l'chatzrot av lai lai lai, shtachavu l'Adonai, be'adarat kodesh, chilu mipanav kol haaretz, imrum v'goyim, Adonai malach, avtikum tevel balatimot, yadinam b'meisharim, yismechu hashamayim v'tagil haaretz, ayiram mayamu mehelo, yalo sadai, v'chol asher bo lai lai lai, azir anenu kolat seyar, lifnei Adonai kiva, kiva lishpot aretz, yishpot sed tevel betzedek, v'yamim be'emunato, yalai la lai la, yai la 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, lai lai la lai la lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai. We continue on page 15 with Psalm 97. Adonai reigns, let the earth be glad, the many distant lands rejoice. Clouds and thick darkness surround the divine. Righteousness and justice secure God's throne. Fire goes before God, consuming besiegers round about. Flashes of lightning illumine the land. The earth watches and trembles. Mountains melt like wax at the approach of Adonai, at the approach of the Master of all the earth. The heavens tell of God's righteousness, and all the nations see God's glory. Worshippers of idols be shamed for praising false gods. All that is deemed supreme bow before God. Zion hears of it and rejoices. The cities of Judah exalt as you, Adonai, pass judgment. You, Adonai, are above all that is earthly, exalted over all that is worshipped as divine. Those who love Adonai hate evil. God protects the lives of the faithful, saving them from the hands of the sinful. Light is sown for the righteous and joy for the upright. Rejoice in Adonai, you righteous people, and thank God as you pronounce the divine holy name. Or zaru la tzadik ul Yisrael simcha, simchu tzadikim b'Adonai, v'hodu lezecher kadesho. Psalm 98, page 17. Amizmar shiru ladonai, shir chadash, ki niflaot asa, hoshia lo yemino, Uzaroako, Ocho Adia, Adonai Yeshuato, Le'ena Goyim Gilatzit Kato, Zachar Chasta Ve'emunato, Leveit Yisrael, Ra'u Cholav Se'aretz, Et Yeshuat Eloheinu, Horiu Ladonai Kol Haaretz, Bitzchum Veranenu V'zameru, Zamru Ladonai Bechinar, Bechinar V'kol Zimera, Bechatzot rod v'kol shofar, hariu lifnei HaMelech Adonai, Yiram hayam u'melo, tevel v'yoshveva, neharod yimcha uchaf, yachad harim yiranenu, lifnei Adonai kiva, lishbot haaretz, yishbot tevel b'tzedek, Ve'amim be'meisharim, yalai, yalai, la 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 la, yalai, la 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 la, yalai, la 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 la, yalai, la 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 la, yalai, la 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 la, yalai, la 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 la. Yalai la 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 la, yai la 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 la. We continue page 19 with Psalm 99. Adonai reigns, nations tremble. The one enthroned amidst the cherubim makes the world quake. Adonai is great in Zion above all nations. They shall acknowledge your name, saying, Great, all-inspiring, Holy One. A sovereign strength lies in the love of justice, and you forged the paths of truth, judging Jacob righteously and justly. Exalt Adonai, our God, bow down before God, the Holy One. Moses and Aaron among God's priests, and Samuel among those who called upon the divine name. Called to you, and you answered them. You spoke to them from amidst the cloud. They kept your covenant and the law you gave them. You answered them, Adonai, our God. You were a forgiving God to them, even as you punished them for their transgressions. Exalt Adonai, our God, and bow down at God's holy mountain, for Adonai, our God, is holy. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu la'ar kadosho, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. We rise, if you are able, page 21, Psalm 29. Mizmor leDavid, havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, havu l'Adonai kavod shemo. Ishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh, kol Adonai al hamayim, el hakavod yirim, Adonai hamayim, hamayim rabim, kol Adonai ba'koach, kol Adonai behadar, kol Adonai shover harazim, v'yashaber Adonai et halzei halvanon, v'yarkidem kemo egel Levanon, v'siryon kemo v'nremim, kol Adonai chotzev lavotesh, kol Adonai yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, kol Adonai yecholeu ayalot, vayechasab ye'arod, uvehechalo kulo amer kavod, kulo amer kavod. Adonai lamabul yashav, vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom, et amo v'shalom. You may be seated. We continue with Lechadodi, page 23. Lechadodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela, Lechadodi lekrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmiyanu elam yuchad, Adonai echad, Ushemo echad, L'shemo tiferet, V'litila lecha, dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila likrat Shabbat lechu v'nhilcha ki mikora biracha merosh mikedem nesucha sov maaseh b'machshvat chila lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila mikdash melech ir melucha kumitzi mitocha hafecha rav lach shevet biyemek abacha v'uyachamo alayechem la lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila hitnari me'afar kumi livshevik de tifartechami ayad ben yishai beit alachmi karva el nafshi geyala lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila hitoreri kiva ore kumi ori shir daberi kivod Adonai alayich nigla lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila lo tevoshi v'lo tikami ma tishtochachi umatem mibach yechasu ani ayami v'nivnata ir al tila lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila v'hayulim shisa shahu asayich v'rachakuko mihivalayich yasis alayich Elohayich kimchas chatan haukala lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila yamin usmo tifroti v'et Adonai taritzi ayadish ben barzi v'nismecha v'nagila lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila. We rise and we chant the last stanza of Lechadudi, page 25, as we face the entrance towards the west to greet the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom ateret balato gam besimcha uvetzalatohem munei am segula boi chala lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila. You may be seated. We continue page 27 with Psalm 92. A psalm, the song of the day of Shabbat. It is good to thank you, Adonai, and sing to your name, Most High, to proclaim your love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night. Finger the lute, pluck the harp, let the sound of the lyre rise up. You gladden me with your deeds, Adonai, and I shall sing of your handiwork. How wonderful are your works, Adonai, how subtle your designs. The arrogant do not understand, the fool does not comprehend this. The wicked flourish like grass, and every evildoer blossoms, only to be destroyed forever. But you, Adonai, are exalted for all time. Surely your enemies, Adonai, surely your enemies will perish. All who commit evil will be scattered. As a wild bull raises up its horn, you raised my head high, anointed it with fresh oil. As my enemies gather against me, my gaze remains steady, for my ears listen and hear. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in our God's courtyards. In old age they remain fruitful, still fresh and bountiful, proclaiming Adonai is upright, my rock, in whom there is no flaw. Tzadik Tamar Yifrach Ki Erez Balvanon Yiske Shetulim Beveit Adonai Bechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu Od Yenuvun Beseva Deshenim Verhananim Yeyu Leagid Ki Yashar Adonai Tzuri V'lo Havlatabo. Page 29, Psalm 93. Adonai is sovereign, robed in splendor, girded in strength. The earth stands firm, not to be dislodged. From earliest time you are enthroned, you are eternal. The rivers rise up, Adonai. The rivers raise up their roar. The rivers raise up their waves. Above the roar of the vast sea and the majestic breakers of the ocean, Adonai stands supreme in the heavens. In your house, beautiful in its holiness, your testimonies endure, Adonai, for all time. Shabbat Shalom, welcome. Thank you all for joining me this evening as we celebrate the beginning of Shabbat, Kabbalat Shabbat together. Okay. Before I share a few words, I want to just make sure everybody knows that tomorrow morning we will celebrate the Ufruf for Jenna Rosoff and Richard Leibovitz. So we will enjoy celebration of an upcoming marriage for the Leibovitz family and the Rosoff family as well. Rosoff family, sorry. Also, just to let you know about next week, next weekend I will be attending the bar mitzvah for a young lady that I went to rabbinical school with. And so I will be attending services in Silver Spring, Maryland. So I will not be here next Friday and Saturday. Services will be led in person only by Joel Cohen. And if you miss having an online presence, you may visit my friend and colleague, Rabbi Steve Silberman, at Avas Chesed in Mobile. They do services on YouTube Live. You could go to their website and join them, both Friday night and Saturday morning. Of course, the best is coming live and attending services in person. But you will do what you are comfortable with at this moment. The Torah portion for this week, Tazria, is usually coupled with next week's portion, Mitzorah. And God, in God's infinite wisdom, makes all rabbis quake at the idea of trying to give two sermons on this particular uncomfortable topic. Tazria Mitzorah deals with the laws of impurity and a skin disease that in the Bible is called Sara'at and is improperly translated as leprosy. That being said, I am so glad that I am out of town, and so I can hear what our bar mitzvah next week is going to share with Mitzorah. Also, this week is a confluence of three different things. Not only is it Parshat Tazria, but it's also Shabbat HaChodesh, which is the third of four special Shabbatot before, Pesach, which occurs in a couple weeks. I know, hard to believe, but it is. And so Shabbat HaChodesh always occurs on the Shabbat before the Hebrew month of Nisan. And this year, the month of Nisan actually occurs on the same day we celebrate Shabbat HaChodesh. So it is also Rosh Chodesh. So we have tomorrow morning, we will actually take out 3 Torahs. A rarity. It only happens twice a year. Impurity is a hard concept for us moderns to grasp. I talked last week about the para aduma, the red heifer, and how the ashes sprinkled on someone who was in an impure state would become pure. I also talked about the word gives us a distinct impurity, gives us a distinct feeling of physical uncleanliness. This is actually not the correct way to look at it and leads us to a profound understanding of this concept. Tumah is spiritual impurity, not a physical impurity. Take this example, which is relevant since this week's Torah portion, Tazria, opens by describing the act of childbirth, making the mother impure, which reeks of unfairness and nonsense. But look at it this way. Think of the time when you either had or watched a baby being born. Did you notice the gook that was on the baby at birth? Or did you notice something else? Did you pay attention to the blood and mucus and unspeakably disgusting things on that little infant? Could you imagine yourself not holding it and embracing it and loving it? I remember when Joel, our first child, was born, how I held him and thinking how heavenly he looked at this time of beholding the miracle of birth. I remember kissing Joel and placing him on Irene for the first time. Irene and I were both drenched in this warm, gooey stuff covering the entire child. Then the nurses took Joel and washed him and cleaned him up and gave him back to us. Upon seeing this child for the second time, there was something palpably missing. Yes, I was still in awe of being a father and could not believe that I had a hand in bringing this child to life. But the disgusting blood and mucus and pus was not there and somehow diminished the moment in a very profound way. Never could that moment be recreated, that of birth. All of that was washed away and became tum'ah, impurity, by moving away from the pure, or tahor. Also in Tazria, we begin discussion of tzara'at, an indefinable disease that only the priest, the Kohen, could detect, only the priest could pronounce as impure. The person so designated by the priest to have contracted tzara'at was to isolate him or herself from that community and walk around saying, "Unclean, unclean." What are we to make of this? Maybe this person is not saying that he has done something wrong or is somehow spiritually deficient, but is pleading for help. Maybe this person feels unwhole, to be less than perfect, and in need of rememberment. By shouting unclean, this person is asking to be noticed and paid attention to, and to be cared for and brought back to the community from which he or she was separated. This is what I believe to be the reason for the Mishaberach prayer for healing that we recite every Shabbat morning, every Monday and Thursday morning when the Torah is opened. It is a call to the community that are suffering to take notice of them. It's a call for those in our community that are suffering to take notice of them, and asking us to offer support and encouragement in their moment of despair. I believe that the prayers of healing are heard by God, but I think they are also heard by us and acted upon by us. We hear a name on the list and immediately start thinking about them. Why are they not in shul? What tragedy has befallen them? What debilitating illness have they contracted, and simply as a result of them aging? We all cry out on occasion, "Unclean, unclean." Does anyone hear us? Do we hear those cries ourselves? There are lots of people on our own Mishaberach list. Purging the list every now and then only results in the same people and more still being put on the list. I recall in my 5th year of rabbinical school when our graduating class was together, and we always stopped to do a Mishaberach for healing for those that we know. So week after week for 5 years, we heard sometimes the same names. One of my colleagues, Rachel Kobrin, stopped us once and said, "Who are these people that we are reciting this Mishaberach for every week?" And we had to go one by one to each of us, and we had to say something about who we were saying a Mishaberach for. It was profound. Rather than a perfunctory reading of the Mishaberach names, maybe we should all take note of who is on this list and make a point of visiting them or sending them a kind note of encouragement. Along with a visit, a call, or helping with getting them to doctor's appointments, or simply sitting with someone having chemo, are all proper expressions of our need to be made pure, to have this uncleanness removed. I encourage everyone in this next week to pay attention to someone, to some tangible way. Find a tangible way to acknowledge someone on the Mishaberach list. And in case you don't know who is on the list, here they are. Helen Byrne, Rhonda Blitz, Baruch ben Elisheva, Arnold Fast, Sheila Gidry, Chana Batsara, Linda Smith, Marjorie Allen, Charles Miller, Sherry Russ, Iris Bat Rivka, Becca Martinez, Isaac Ben Joseph, Marcia Orange, Harav Malki Tzedek Ben Barucha, David Kelman, Yael Bat Nami Rivka, Natan Yaakov Ben Nami Rivka, Sarah Schaefer, Mike Watts, Kelly Mossberg, Deborah Winkler, Jerry Weisenfeld, Kay Bully, Jeannie Meisler, Miriam Butt, Dina, Tara Martinez Fernandez, Liz Wolko, Deanna Barber, Miriam Butt Rivka, Taraz Butt Ruth, Mark Platnick, Marlone Jermaine Barnes, Virginia Madden, Raymond Labato Jr., Natalie Copeland, Christopher Hill, Lorenza Rivera, Tana Boulard Rivera, Gittel Tamar Bat Miriam, Sarah Shoshana Bat Nami Rivka, Joseph Dumas, Marcia Hudson, Ed Jackman, Scott Decker, Bela Bus Rivka, William Williams, Marilyn Fadomsky, Jim Mittenswy, Lucy and Tilly Caldwell, Danny Bierman, Sheila Decker, Eugene Labato, Rezal Bataraz, Roland Young, Marilyn Omens, Matt Zobel, Shannon Howard, Tim Whitmer, Nami Rivka Bat Miriam, Benio Nazwaz, Jeff Caldwell, Margaret Caldwell, Reese Smith, and Roberta Rivera. There's a lot of people on this list. Let us join together and sing Debbie Friedman's Mishaberach. Mishaberach Avoteinu Mikor Abracha Le'imoteinu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Avoteinu Mikor Abracha Le'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Shabbat Shalom. We continue, page 39a. We rise for the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Leolam Avoed. You may be seated. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Umahavir yom umevi laila, mavdil ben yom uven laila Adonai tzavot shemo, el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu lam v'ed baruch et Adonai hamari v'aravim. Page 40. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ואהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשכבנו וקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובאו הם מנהגי יומם ולילה ויעבדך תשים ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך והיה אם שמוע תשמעו אל מצוותיי. היות ידכם ויודעת ואת בניכם ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת להם ויעשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורתם ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בתיל תכלת והיה לכם לציצית וראיתם אותו וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם ולא תטו אחרי לבבכם לאחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם למען תסגרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Adonai Elohechem Emet, page 43a. Ve'emunah kozot v'kayam aleinu. ומלכותו ברצון קיבליה משה ובני ישראל הנשירה בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם מי כמוך פועלים אדוני מי כמוך נדור בקודש נהורה תהילות אוסף אלה מלכותך ובניך בוקיים לפני משה זה לי ענו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי ודע אדוני את יעקב וגלד מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל page 45 השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום ושמוצאתנו ואין לחיים ושלומי אתה ויד עולם ופעוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ברוך אתה אדוני הפוחד סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים page 46 we rise ושמרו בני ישראל et Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. We rise for the silent Amidah, pages 47 through 52. מודים אנחנו לך. עושה שלום במרמיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. We remain standing as the ark is opened for Aleinu, page 56. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon nakol atet dula liutzer bereshit shalo asan kagoye aratzot velo samanu kamishmachot hadama shalo sam chelkenu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lefnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Notei Shamayim v'Yosed Haaretz, U'Moshev Yikaro B'Shamayim Imao, U'Shchinatu Zo, Begavei Meromim, Hu Eloheinu Einod, Emet Malkeinu Evazulato, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשיבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד על כן, נקווה לך אדוני אלוהינו, לראות מהר בתפארת וזכר. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad. You may be seated. This week, where's my list? Okay. This week we will observe yahrzeits for Julius Axelrod, Leon J. Capeluto, Janice Wolf Capeluto, Selma Capuano, Joseph Cohen, Francis Bell Corman, Ralph A. Franco, Edith Gross, Sue Israel Katz, Sarah Kermish, Joseph Mazer, Sherry Silverman, Gerson Solomon, Morris Varon, Ann Wildstein, and Ruth Schinbaum-Zellen. Those observing yahrzeit and those who mourn, please rise. Page 58, and join me for the Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah, B'yoma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayichon v'yamechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, b'agalav izman kariv imahu amen, Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'me'al maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei d'kudisha b'richu, Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran b'yoma v'yimahu amen, Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimahu amen, Oseh shalom b'mirmav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimahu amen. You may be seated. Thank you all for joining me this evening, for joining us, our community, to celebrate Shabbat, Kabbalat Shabbat. We will be back tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. and we invite you to come in person or online and enjoy the celebration of the Ufra for Richard Leibovitz and Jenna Rossoff, who are going to be wed in Chicago in a future date. So an ufruf is the opportunity for the couple to come to the show and get a blessing before their marriage. And it should be a lot of fun, either in person or online. But if you come in person, you get to throw candy. And not necessarily to take aim at anyone, but to shower the couple with sweetness. Please join us Monday and this coming Monday for our weekday minyan at 7:15 a.m. Next Thursday morning, we will not have a minyan. I will be on a plane to Silver Spring for a bar mitzvah of a colleague in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I'll also be staying with my son, Joel, who I talked about earlier, and I'm going to share the story with him, and with my grandson, Rafi, and his dear wife, Adina Galinsky. It's going to be a fun weekend. Next Friday night, Joel Cohen will be leading services here, but alas, not online. If you do not have the opportunity to come here in person for a live service, you are welcome to attend online services via YouTube Live for Avas Chesed Synagogue in Mobile. That's my colleague, Rabbi Steve Silberman. You can go to their website, Avas Chesed, in Mobile, and get instructions for how you find them on YouTube Live. And then, of course, the week after that is Pesach. Yes. And we look forward to that. We will now conclude our service, page 211. Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'ed nasa v'chefso kol azai melech shemo nikra v'yacharei kichlot hakol leva ado yimloch nora v'hu haya v'hu hoveh v'hu yiyeh b'tifara v'hu echad v'yein sheni laham shelo lehachbira beli reshit beli tachlit v'lo ha'oz v'hamisra v'hu eli v'chai go'ali v'tzor chevli b'yetzara v'hu nisi umanosli menat kosi b'yomekra b'yado avkid ruchi b'yet ishan v'yaira v'imaruchi geviyati Adonai li v'lo ira Adonai li v'lo ira. Shabbat shalom. Bye, everyone.